Shalom, shalom, Israel, shalom, pleasant, shalom. Shabbat shalom to the 12 tribes of Israel. Peace and blessings to the elect of Israel scattered abroad throughout the four winds of the earth. Double honors to the elect elders of the house of David that's been in this truth for decades and decades, patiently waiting and laboring for the second coming of our Lord Yahushua. A hearty, mighty shalom to all of the mighty men of the Most High God who are out there in the highways and byways, pushing this truth, magnify the ministry, presenting their bodies as a little sacrifice, and enduring all things for the elect sake. Shalom to those men. Shalom to the men that may not be out there in the highways and byways as of yet, but they're working on it, they're getting built up in the spirit, they're praying, they're fasting, they're studying, they're being diligent, and they're abounding in the work of the Lord. Shalom to those men. Shalom to the aqua out there, the sincere sisters that are out there zealous, diligent, and on fire, moving in the spirit of our righteous foremothers. Shalom to the ancient men. Shalom to the children. Shalom to the elect of Israel scattered abroad throughout the four corners of the earth. And shalom to everybody who tuned in their lives.
Shabbat shalom. All praise to the Most High Yahweh in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahushua, for another Shabbat, another day of edifying, another day of getting yourself in order, getting your house in order, right? As we always do, let's go to Acts chapter 18 and verse 4.
It's the book of Acts, chapter 18 and verse 4.
No.
And he reasoned in the synagogue every Sabbath and persuaded the Jews and the Greeks.
Right. Another Sabbath serves to persuade Israel, who knows that the Israel is continuing the faith, the law, statutes, and commandments, the brotherly love, and charity, all things to magnify the name of the Most High. Right. To those who are just finding out that they're Israel, to compel them to be in the church of Berea, to search the scripture daily and diligently receive the words that are spoken to them with joy. Right, there's a lot of false prophets and soothsayers and people who set forth to deter the hopeful elect from getting understanding. Right, it's our job as the watchmen for Israel to combat that evil with the words of the Most High, with the precepts of the Most High. And the only way we can do that is through Philippians 4, verse 13.
It's the book of Philippians, chapter 4 and verse 13. I can do all things through Hamashiach, which strengtheneth me.
Right, so through the Spirit, Yahushua, we're able to cast down false doctrine, stand 10 toes down for the doctrine that we learned, not be taught to and fro like a wave in the sea, stay fervent and on fire for the Most High.
Come. Right, once again, giving all praise, honor, and glory to our now, Yahweh, by Shema, my truck. Yahushua, right? I talk about the righteous, right? Of course, giving again, right? A strong shalom, right? To all the Akim, right? Also to all the Aqua, the brothers and sisters, tuning in to this live, mighty binders, mighty children, right? As well, right? To all the Mashapaka family who aren't here, right? All praise to the Most High and Shabbat Shalom. Well, let's go to the book of Acts, chapter 15 and verse number 19.
The book of Acts, chapter 15 and verse number 19. Wherefore my sentence is that return not them, which from among the Gentiles are turned to the Most High.
Right. Of course, as every Sabbath day, right, it's another day of another brother or sister, right, joining in and tuning into the lives, man, that have turned, right, from the ways of the Gentiles, right, the state that we used to be in the world, right, doing God knows what, breaking the Sabbath day, but now returning to the Most High to give His commands, you know.
Verse 20, but that we write unto them that they abstain from pollutions of idols, and from fornication, and from things strangled, and from blood. For Moses of old time have in every city, them that preach them, being read in the synagogues every Sabbath day.
Every what?
Every Sabbath day.
Right, come, man. So every Sabbath day, man, right, we're teaching our people, man, right, building up, right, our faith, man, right, building up our works, man, to turn away from idols, man, to turn away from things that's polluted, man, with blood and filth, right, and all the things that's unclean and ungodly, right, to turn back unto the Most High.
God, we diving right into a Q&A. I mean, there's a lot of prophecies unfolded in the earth, man. Right, real quick, let's go to 2nd Ezra, chapter 15 and 1. There's a lot of judgments. There's bombs being dropped on the earth. There are children being torn and blown apart into pieces. You have oil fields being bombed as we speak. You have secret councils of generals and government officials on what they should do to either try to de-escalate this war that's starting up in the Middle East or how to keep this fire going, huh? So there's a lot of prophecies, and we're in the spirit of prophecy. right, in these last days. Let's read that, King. Second Ezra chapter 15 and verse number 1.
Second Ezra, chapter 15 and verse 1. Behold, speak thou in the ears of thy people the words of prophecy, which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Lord, and cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true.
So the Most High has commanded us to go into the prophecies, right? These aren't the days to be trying to figure out how tall Susanna was, right? Was she 5'3" or was she 5'5"? That doesn't matter, huh? These aren't the days to be trying to go in that breakdown on the musical instruments that David and Solomon made, huh? Right? And you go on and show the timeline and clips on the History Channel, and we go into these prophecies, huh? We're going to the book of Revelation with David and second Ezra. We're going to spend more time these last days in the book of Daniel, Ezekiel, these prophetic books, huh? Right? So it's our job to speak in the ears of the children of Israel, the words of prophecy. So again, there's a lot of questions about prophecies, what it dive into, and there's questions in general. And we want to do our due diligence to bring forth understanding. What Ecclesiasticus chapter 39 and verse number 1. Right? So we should be speaking in the ears of the people the words of prophecy, because now you begin to understand what the Most High is going to do in the earth. That's why prophecies are important. Not just to know what he's going to do in the earth, but how to prepare yourself for these judgments that draw nigh. Right? So let's read that in the book of Ecclesiastes 39 and 1.
The book of Sirach, chapter 39, verse 1. But he that giveth his mind to the law of the Most High, and is occupied in the meditation thereof, will seek out the wisdom of all the ancients, and be occupied in prophecy.
And be what?
And be occupied in prophecy.
So occupy the word.
And be occupied in prophecy.
So you're going to spend a lot of time in the room of prophecy. See, the Bible has many chambers, many rooms. You can dive into the room in the law. You can dive into the history when you read the book of Judges, through the 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, 2 Kings. You can also go into the room of prophecy. Occupy that room, right? When you go to these different places, it'll say vacant or it'll say occupied. Huh? Go into the room of prophecy and turn that switch so everybody knows who's in there, huh? Right? Dive into the books of Ezekiel. Read the book of Zechariah. Read Isaiah. Read Jeremiah. Right? Stop trying to debate everybody all day. You don't know any prophecies, huh? Right? Stop trying to sit there and figure out how long King Solomon's braids were, huh? Did he have locks or braids? Were they plaited or did they have the golden twist? Right? Because I'm now trying to figure out, no, huh? We're not trying to figure out that thing, huh? We're trying to seek out what the Most High is doing on the earth through these judgments and prepare ourselves, our households, and the nation. God.
Let's go to Revelation 1 and 3. Right, to let me back on what the brother was saying. Right? Those that hear the words of prophecy are blessed. Because not to be saying that brothers have familiar spirits, but we're able to know what's going to happen in these last days. Right? The Most High is foreshowing and foretelling you these things. And the world is grinding. Right? The world is sitting on edge, wondering what can happen. The Lord gave you men of God to write them, like the brother went to in 2 Ezra 15 chapters, in the second verse, to publish them and to write them, to give understanding, to give heed to those who have ears to hear and eyes to see. Right, let's bring that out again.
Revelation chapter 1 and verse 3. Blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand.
So these things were written so that we can be blessed, so we can increase in knowledge, increase in wisdom and understanding, get your spirit, your family spirit in order so that you can be saved in the last days. Let's go to 1 Peter chapter 1. We can start at verse 25.
1 Peter chapter 1 and verse number 25.
We'll start at 24.
Verse 24. For all flesh is as grass, and all the glory of man as the flower of grass. And the grass withereth, and the flower thereof falleth away.
Right, so the glory of man, right, these men who boast of their works or who want to be coverage of everything that's going on, right, their grass is gonna wither away like the flowers in the meadows, right? Flowers don't last forever, right? You buy your wife some flowers, those things are dead within a week. Right, you can do whatever you want. You can put alcohol or bleach in the water, they're still gonna wither away. Right, keep reading again.
Verse 25. But the word of the Lord endureth forever. And this is the word which by the gospel is preached unto you.
So the words of the Lord endure forever. Right? These were written centuries ago, and we're seeing them unfold before our eyes. And Israel had so many questions: what's going to happen next? How do I prepare? What can I look forward to? Right? The words of prophecy are blessing you to understand how to move accordingly in these last days.
Right, God, right? Let's go to the book of Psalm, chapter 78, and start at verse number 1. Right, but the Most High, he's inclining, right, to draw your ears, man, your hearts and minds unto his words in these last days, man, and to see those prophets. Right, so bring that up, Psalm 78 and verse 1.
Psalms chapter 78 and verse 1. Give ear, O my people, to my law. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old.
Right, and the Most High, right, these dark sayings of old, right, these parables, right, these prophecies, right, these things which were once hidden, right, the Most High in these last days, he's now having these things to be unveiled, and making these things to be made manifest in these last days. Right, read on.
Verse 3, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us.
Right, and our fathers have told us, right, Ezra, right, Isaiah, right, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, right, Daniel, right, Haggai, right, Zephaniah, Joel, Amos, right, on both fathers have told us these things, which were done, right, all through from the book of Genesis, right, all the way, right, to the last chapter, right, read on.
We will not hide them from their children.
You know what?
We will not hide them from their children.
Right? Personally, we can't have these prophecies in these last days, right? You can't add up the knowledge and understanding that the Most High has given you, right? Trying to have the prophecies, right? Trying to have the destruction that is coming at hand, right? But you're going into, right? How long was the priest garments, right? And it's rich thereof, right? So we would not have it from the children, you know.
Show it to the generation to come the praises of the Lord and his strength and his wonderful works that he has done.
Right, Tom, man. Right, and all these bombs dropping, man. Right, all these wars, man, and fights, man, and things that's picking up and booming, man. Right, all the tension in all things that's booming, man, is all the strength and hand of the Most High. Right, because he's the one that turned the hearts of the so-called kings, man. Right, let's get that real fast in the book of Proverbs. Right, Proverbs chapter 21. Right, and let's start at verse number 1.
Proverbs chapter 21 and verse number 1. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord.
Right, so the king's heart, right, being what the king's mind, right, and you could line it back that up, right, with stuff like Jeremiah, the 17th chapter, and the 9th verse on down, right, so the minds of these kings, right, are all in the control and hand and power of the Most High, right, he's the one that's starting to be these nations against each other, right? He's the one that's putting the spirit on these so-called generals, these so-called top men, right? These so-called these presidents, governors, these rulers, right? To set up and to get ready for war and battle, right? Let's talk about. I believe it also tells you that in the book of Ezekiel, right? The 38th chapter, right? How the Lord he puts. Right, how the Lord he puts up his hooks into their jaws, right? To force the battle, right? Real.
As the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will.
Right, as the rivers of water, right? In the same way that the river it flees and it fluctuates in its course, that's the same way that Most High, right? He's controlling these men in these last days, right? That's first guy.
So let's dive right into it, right through the spirit of Pop Yahweh Shemir. First question.
God, first question is from Yahweh Israel. What will be the beginning of the fifth seal?
Let's go to Revelation chapter 6. Right, and let's read verse number 8 or 9. Let's read 9.
It's the book of Revelation, chapter 6, and verse number 9.
You just read 8, read 8.
Revelation chapter 6 and verse 8. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him, and power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth to kill with the sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth.
Right, so this is the fourth seal. You're living in the days of the fourth seal now. That's why Iran is bombing Israel. Israel is bombing Iran. You have starvation in parts of Africa, parts of South America, and economic collapses and turmoil and confusion on earth. That is a direct result of spirits working to stir up the elements and work on the minds of these men. Right? So there's an actual spirit of destruction and evil aims on the earth. Right now, as these days wax closer and closer to the time of the fifth seal, which is going to kick off Jacob's trouble, there's going to be more and more persecution. Right? Expect and believe that our names, not specifically your name, but the name of Israel and the men of the Most High, your names will be put on the forefront. Right? So all of this ICE stuff is really just a prelude to what's really to come. Whatever law legislation that they put to try to intertwine the ministry into what they have going on currently is going to be one of the next steps that these devils may do. Right? They already labeled us a domestic terrorist group, a hate group, men of sedition. So we see how the spirit that the Most High has on Trump, where he has this animalistic agenda to attack all men that are against the status quo of America. Rather you're illegal, or rather your visas are expired, or if you speak or say anything against America, you'll be put into that category. You're going to put us all in that same bucket. So as the days of the fourth seal come to an end, you're going to see more and more persecution, and more defamation, possibly false flags, and all these things that are going to put this ministry on the forefront. Real quick, go to Job 15 and 20. Right, Job 15 and 20. Now, do we know exactly how it's going to play out to a T? No, but we understand how things happen in time past. Right? Read Job 15 and 20.
This is the book of Job, chapter 15 and verse number 20. The wicked man travaileth with pain all his days, and the number of years is hidden to the oppressor.
Who's the wicked man? Esau. Right? Now the Lord said he travailed with pain all his days, and the number of years is hidden to the oppressor, meaning he doesn't know when his kingdom's going to fall. Only the Most High knows. Right? That's hidden to him. Read on.
Verse 21.
But he knows it is coming. That's what we're about to read.
A dreadful sound is in his ears.
The Lord said,
a dreadful sound is in his ears. And prosperity, the destroyer, shall come upon him.
So the dreadful sound is these lies, the men on the highways and byways, the precepts coming out, the word of God. That is the dreadful sound that's in the ears of the so-called. In every major city, and even minor cities, villages, townships, doesn't matter. You have men who know the name of the Most High out in the highways and byways, condemning the society, exposing their wicked agendas, and magnify the name of the Most High. That's a dreadful sound to this man. Read on.
He believeth not that he shall return out of darkness.
You know he can't make it out of here, man. That's why he's going to make an act in haste to try to establish his new world order, man. Right? Wage these wars in the Middle East. Read.
He is waited for of the sword.
He knows that he's waited for of Yahweh. You don't think he read the Apocrypha? You don't think he read 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter? You don't think he has wise men and warlocks and priests? Right. Right. Doesn't it say that in the book of Judah that they know when we said they can destroy us? They know the Bible, huh? Stop believing that these guys, these vocab alone, and these low-level Edomites are the top Edomite men. Those are low-level guys. They're the top-level Edomite men that know the scriptures like us, huh? They may not have the Holy Spirit, but they have these demons working in them to help oppress the children of Israel. They deal with this is what I'm looking for: soothsaying, sorcery, familiar spirits, curses. Read on.
Verse 23. He wandereth abroad for bread, saying, where is it?
Here's the point.
He knoweth.
He what?
He knoweth.
So he thinking.
He knoweth that the day of darkness is ready at his hand.
He knows it's over. He knows time is up. He see us waking up by the hundreds of thousands, man. Families in order, fathers in order, wives in order, children in order, fringes. Right? They study the market, man. They see what's being sold. All of these fringes coming up, man, and being bought. All of these shirts being bought. All these corporations of Israelites having these businesses and they see these things, man. Right? They see the foot traffic that you're always at this camp location. You're always at this school. They're monitoring how many videos you're watching. And the algorithm for Israelite videos has excelled in the land of the living, man. They study all of these things that pertain to the waking up of the children of Israel. So he knows that the day of darkness is at hand by his wise men. You know, so the beginning of the fifth seal is going to start with them understanding that their days are approaching to an end. And they're going to ramp up that propaganda, right? They may put us on these billboards, but they may, you know, these devils, they like to use wicked legislation and wicked laws, you know, and code words. They lump us all into one category. Anybody, you know, I can see it now, anybody that's against America, that speaks against America, we will find you and arrest you. Right? That includes so-and-so, 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 and so-and-so. They might even have your name, you know? And if anybody in your local city knows these men, you must report them immediately. Right now, your job from corporate, they got to look into you, man. They're pulling the records. They found out that it's you. They're asking questions. They brought you into the office. Hey, you're fired. You know, and they're gonna be like ISIS going door to door. They're gonna be coming at the middle of the Lord, huh? Right, one more. Matthew 10 and 17.
It's the book of Matthew, chapter 10, and verse number 17. For beware of men, for they will deliver you up to the councils, and they will scourge you in their synagogue.
Read.
And ye shall be brought before governors and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them and the Gentiles.
So they're literal. Who's the governor of Maryland? Hogan? Westmore. Westmore, man. And you might get brought before Westmore, man. With a black bag over your head, man. And he sits down before you, man. With the chief sheriff of Maryland, whoever that is, right? And the top lieutenant. You know, all these names they got. You're going to be brought before state legislation, man. Don't they have a state court? Is that the word I'm looking for? Who's like a top court? Not circuit court, district courts, and they got these courts, man. You know, Supreme Courts, and there's levels to the court system. So we're going to be brought before these governors. It's not talking about the damn local court, divorce court. Being brought before governors is the highest level of the judicial system due to the federal crimes that you are going to be facing, federal capital punishments, man. So the judges and the governors, you're going to be literally brought to these buildings, man. And you may have seen these buildings before. They may make new buildings just for the men of the Lord. So you have to be mindful of these things. So the beginning of the fifth seal is going to start with the persecution of the saints.
Go. Right in the fifth seal, nobody's college is martyr. Right, the seal of martyr. Right, let's go to let me back on the brother said. Let's go to Matthew 24:6. Right, they may bring you before the Supreme Court. Right, I know everybody here has seen the Dark Knight with Bane. I can't remember what that was called. It might have been the Dark Knight Rises. Yeah, right, with Bane. Right, the same way that they brought them before or makeshift judges and made them walk out on that river of ice. Right, and they called it exile. And they fell in the river of ice, and that is the same thing they're going to be doing, man. They're going to conjure up punishments and torture, things to do to make you forsake your God, man. But you have to endure to the end. You can't let these things trouble you. Right? It's already prophesied, man. Right? You can tell what's going to happen in the future. So you have to know how to build yourself up to withstand it. Right? Don't be sitting in the mirror practicing what you're going to say to them. Right? Let the words of the Lord come with you and meditate on your thoughts. So you'll be able to withstand the days of trouble, right? In the fiery darts of Satan. Let's bring it up.
Matthew chapter 24 and verse 6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass.
Right? And that's the time that we're living in, right? The fourth seal is all an outright war and destruction, right? Well, the sixth seal is destruction. Right, the fourth seal is wars, right? wars and unrighteous dealings and judgments and punishments. Right? So we hear the rumors of wars, we see the actions of wars, right? We can't let these things trouble us, man. Right? I've been seeing on Twitter a lot of people making jokes about it, man. They make it light about these things because they don't understand what's coming next. Right? Keep going, Ken.
But the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation,
Right?
and kingdom against kingdom.
Right? So that's talking about the hills against the hills, right? The mountains against the mountains, Esau against Israel, right? All the other nations against Israel.
And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places.
Right?
All these are the beginning of sorrows. They shall deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake.
Right? They're not delivering you up because you didn't pay your parking tickets. Right? They're not delivering you up because you called out of work one too many times. They're delivering you up because you fear the living God. You're walking in these law, statutes, and commandments. Let's go to 2 Ezra 16 and start at 68. Right? That great insurrection is coming, man. Right? That insurrection between if you serve Yahweh Shah or if you serve man. If you're about what you're talking, or if you're just making spectacle on YouTube, man. Because a lot of people are going to hear that day, depart from me, ye workers of iniquity. Right? You're going to hear that. Those who practice lawlessness. Right? Read that out, kids.
2 Ezra chapter 16 and verse number 68. For behold, the burning wrath of a great multitude is kindled over you, and they shall take away certain of you, and feed you being idle with things offered unto idols.
So that burning wrath is the nation getting worked up, chiefly Esau, to come and get you, man. Because they're going to try your ways, like they say in Wisdom of Solomon in the 5th chapter. They're going to see if you're a man of God or a woman of God, if you talk what you really about. Right? The time for talk and the time for action is coming now, man. There's a lot of talkers in these last days. You're going to see who's really about the action. Who's really here to lay your life down for the Lord? Right, you go, kid.
Come. And they that consent unto them shall be had in derision.
So if you consent and eat these things that are sacrificed to idols, right? If you forsake the Lord, or if you bow down to the white man and kiss his hand or his ring, whatever they may force you to do, you're gonna be in derision, man. You're gonna be lost. You go, kid.
And in reproach and trodden underfoot.
Right?
For there shall be in every place.
So, and not in Baltimore, not in New York, not in just LA, in every place, in Babylon, right? In every place in the UK, right? Every place in so-called South America, in every place.
And in the next cities, a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord.
So it's going to be an insurrection. Can we look up the word insurrection, Brother Michelle? So it's going to be a great tumult, right? A burning wrath, right? You know what a burning wrath is? You ever burnt yourself on the stove? How fast you looking for cold water, for ice, your hand shaking? You doing that damn in a split second. You run a 240 to get some ice on the burnt part of your body, right? That's the same way they're going to be to try to slaughter and murder those who fear the Lord. Right, let's bring out that definition, okay?
From Merriam-Webster's dictionary, insurrection, an act or instance of revolting against civil authority or an established government.
So the established government that they're trying to overthrow is the house of the Lord being built. Right? The temple of the Lord is being built in Egypt, like it says in Isaiah the 19th chapter. Those are the men and women who are forsaking this world and serving the Lord. Right? Getting rid of all the ideologies they learned in and trusting in Yahweh Shai. That's the insurrection. They're going to try to overthrow the government of the Most High that's being set forth. Right? 2 more verses, okay?
Verse number 71. They shall be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord.
That's the true sign that you're in the 5th city. When you see martyrs, when you see people who are dying for the word of the Yahweh, when you see those who are giving up the ghost just to be an example to the next men or the next women of how they're supposed to live their life, sold into the Lord.
For they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses.
Right?
Then shall be known who are my chosen, and they shall be tried as gold in the fire.
So that's how you're gonna know who the chosen of the Lord. Right? Not like these Christians say, it's only Christians. No, it's those who the Most High tries, and they get refined as gold, and they stand steadfast and 10 toes down for the words of the Lord.
Well, let's go to the next question. It's right, huh? All right, it's right through the spirit of power. How about you, shut?
The next question from Stefano Kennedy. Can you explain Deuteronomy 7:3 about not making marriages to other nations? And in Deuteronomy 21, it says you can after war.
Right. So the law, let's go to Deuteronomy 20. Right? Let's read about that. So let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 20. Now remember, the Israelites were given a straight commandment concerning how they were to deal with the other nations. Deuteronomy chapter 20 and verse number 12. You can start at 10.
Deuteronomy chapter 20 and verse number 10.
So these are the laws of war. Read.
When thou comest nigh unto a city to fight against it, then proclaim peace unto it.
Proclaim peace to it. All right, like get down and lay down. What you want to do? All right, go on.
And it shall be, if it make thee answer of peace and open unto thee, then it shall be that all the people that is found therein shall be tributaries unto thee.
Right, you gotta pay taxes, right? Give me your cattle, I want a certain portion of your crops. If you grow 100 tomatoes every year, I want 99 of them. Y'all split that last one. If you have 5,000 cattle, I want 4,500 of them. Y'all do the other 500. So that's making people under tribute, right? Go on.
And they shall serve thee. And if it will make no peace with thee, but will make war against thee, then thou shalt besiege it.
You besiege it, right? You compass it round about, and you begin to shoot, not missiles, right? With arrows and stones and things of that nature. You besiege the city. You know.
And when the Lord thy God hath delivered it into thine hands, thou shalt smite every male thereof with the edge of the sword.
I killed every man. Read.
But the woman,
But the what?
but the woman, and the little ones, and the cattle, and all that is in the city, even all the spoil thereof, shalt thou take unto thyself, and thou shalt eat of the spoil and of thine enemies, which the Lord thy God hath given thee.
You kill all men and you take the women. So you can impregnate them and make war of your nation through those women. Right? These are the laws of war. Read on.
Thus shalt thou do unto all the cities which are very far off
Which are what?
which are very far off from thee.
You do this not to every city, but to the cities that are far off. Like the Midianites, they were far off. The Moabite cities, they're far off. The Ammonite cities, they're far off. Certain of the Hamites, like the Egyptians, they're far off. The sons of Put, the daughters, they're far off. Right? Read on.
Which are not of the cities of these nations.
Who are the cities of these nations? The Canaanites, the Girgashites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Hittites, the Amorites, all of these nations, that law don't apply to them. You got killed a men and their woman. All right, read on.
But of the cities of these people, which the Lord thy God doth give thee for an inheritance, thou shalt save alive nothing that breatheth.
Anything that breathes, you hear, kill it. You hear the, kill it. That's not about you, just quiet. You thought you killed everybody. Go find it and kill it. That's how most of them get down, man. Anything that breathes. Read on.
But thou shalt utterly destroy them, namely the Hittites, and the Amorites, the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee.
One more.
That they teach you not to do after all their abominations, which they have done unto their gods, so should ye sin against the Lord your God.
So again, the laws of war dealing with the women of the other nations, they can't be those Canaanite nations, right? They can't be those Canaanite nations. Now, this was the laws of the ancient world and the laws of war. That's why in Numbers, the 31st chapter, they took the Midianites captive. And can I get that real quick? Numbers 31 and 15. Be straight to the point. Because the Midianites weren't very knowledge to them. They were from surrounding the land of Moab.
This is Numbers chapter 31 and verse number 15. And Moses said unto them, have ye saved all the women alive?
Right, now these are Midianites. They came back with the spoils of war. Moses saw all these heathen women and said, why you save all these women? Read.
Behold, these caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to commit trespass against the Lord in the matter of Peor. And there was a plague among the congregation of the Lord.
Why would you save a virus, man? Right? It was like a virus and a plague. This is we want them. We'll take that chance. Read.
Now therefore,
The Lord say,
now therefore, kill every male among the little ones.
kill the little boys, man. You're 3 years old, you're 5 years old, you're 8 years old, thrust them through with a spear, chop their head off. Now, where's that in Christianity, man? Where's that? Where's white Jesus at? He said, kill all the men among the little ones. You might have had a little baby, just stab it with your spear, man. Keep it moving. Kill all the men of the little ones.
And kill every woman that have known man by lying with him.
Right? Kill all of the women that's been polluted by men. Right? Read them.
But all the women, children that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourself.
And it wasn't to play hopscotch with them. The women, children that didn't know a man to keep alive for yourself, it wasn't to play Scrabble with. Right. We don't have to do an in-depth breakdown on why these women were preserved. Right. So the point is, the Lord was able to keep this, allow the Israelites to take these women captive, and they could deal with them, but they couldn't deal with those Canaanite women.
Right. Let's go to the book of Joshua, chapter 6. We can start at verse 20. This is an example of how you're supposed to deal with the Canaanites. Because what people dwelt in Jericho? The Canaanites, right? So this is how the Lord directed you that you deal with it.
Joshua chapter 6 and verse 20. So the people shouted when the priest blew with the trumpet. And it came to pass when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, and the people shouted with a great shout, that the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they took the city.
Right? So everybody knows the story of the Wall of Jericho. Right. Where everybody throughout the whole world knows the story. Right? It's probably one of the most, I say, top 10 biblical stories of all time. Right? Top 5 of the brother said.
Verse 21. And they utterly destroyed all that was in the city, both man and woman, young and old, and ox and sheep, and ass with the edge of the sword.
So everything in that city got slaughtered, right? Because that's a nasty nation, man. A disgusting nation of people. These Canaanites, they do whatever they want to do, man. They do whatever they want to do. The ground is their God, right? The Canaanites, we've been at war with the Canaanites for centuries, man. Even to this day, man, you might deal with a Canaanite and not know. Ashy toes, feet all out, loud, always got the Bluetooth in, right? Smell like armpits, man. We've always been at war with the Canaanites, right? So that time is coming back. We're going to deal with them just as they dealt with us, right? And it's going to come back to places that the Wall of Jericho is going to happen all over it. Not in the same literal sense, but we're going to strike them. Right? We're going to take spoils of their people. Right? You go again.
Verse 22. But Joshua had said unto the two men that had spied out the country, go into the harvest house and bring out thence the woman and all that she had, and ye swear unto her.
Right? So those were the spies who went into the country, and Rahab played the treason. Right? And what would you call somebody who commits a treason? A traitor. Traitor. Right? She played the traitor of her own nation. Right? Hidden spies, let them seek out the land. Right? So the Lord put it in their spirit to make an oath with Rahab. Right?
And the young men that were spies went in and brought out Rahab and her father and her mother and her brethren and all that she had. And they brought out all her kindred and left them without the camp of Israel.
Right.
And they burned the city with fire and all that was therein. Only the silver and the gold and the vessels of brass and of iron they put into the treasury of the house of the Lord.
Right, so that's how you deal with the 7 nations that were listed in Deuteronomy in the 7th chapter. right? But we incorporate that as well to expound that you shouldn't deal with any other nation, right? Except for the children of Israel, right? Sow your seed in your own family.
God, and this was spoken of old. Right? Let's get that in class. Right, Genesis chapter 28, and start at verse number 5. Start at verse number 5.
The book of Genesis, chapter 28, and verse number 5. And Isaac sent away Jacob, and he went to Padan Aram unto Laban, son of Bethuel the Syrian, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob, and Esau's mother.
Right.
When Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob, he sent him away to Padan Aram to take him a wife from thence, and that he blessed him. He gave him a charge, saying, Thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan.
Right, read that part again.
Thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan.
Right, so even our forefathers had foreknowledge, right, of the understanding of these Canaanites, right, filthy, dirty, right, given up to idols, right, and wickedness, right, triggers of blood, right, and all types of darkness and evil, right, but we know that Esau is weak, right,
and that Jacob obeyed his father and his mother.
And what?
And that Jacob obeyed his father and his mother.
Right, but Jacob, right, he obeyed the commandments of his mother and father, right, and went right all unto the far country. Read on.
It was gone to Padan Aram, and Esau, seeing that the daughters of Canaan pleased not Isaac his father, then went Esau unto Ishmael, and took unto the wives which he had Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the daughter of Nebaioth,
right,
to be his wife. And Jacob went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran.
And went toward Haran. Right, but Esau, you know, with all of these strange nations, right, Canaanites, Ishmaelites, right, and all of these evil nations, right. Let's get that real fast.
A quick point, it says, and Esau, seeing that the daughters of Canaan pleased not his father, then went Esau to Ishmael. Well, how does that make it any better? That makes it no better. That's how you know Esau's a reprobate, right? Or please animals that are eating pork, so I'm gonna go eat some shrimp instead. I saw you just pleased at the shrimp, so let me go commit adultery. That's how the so-called white man thinks. He just can't get right. That's what most of us showing you. He just can never get right.
One more quick point I got. He waited until his father died, then he took the daughter of the king.
Exactly.
So he only did what was, like the brother said, please him in his sight when he can see.
Let's get that in the book of Exodus, right, chapter 23, and start at verse number 31.
Exodus chapter 23 and verse number 31. And I will set thy bounds from the Red Sea, even unto the sea of the Philistines, and from the desert unto the river. For I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and thou shalt drive them out before thee. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor with their gods.
Right.
They shall not dwell in thy land.
Right, and they shall not dwell in our land, right? Which is what the Lord, he is straight commands, right? And in Exodus, the 31st chapter, right? And Deuteronomy, the 20th chapter, right? 21st chapter, right? When thou goest out to war and battle, right? Because when you deal with these nations, among you, read on.
Lest they make thee sin against me.
Right, lest they make you sin against the Lord your God. Right, because these nations, they still have liberty, right, to do it as thou wilt, right, to add their so-called super idols and gods, right, which was right there's a process and statutes, right, put in place, right, when dealing with nations, right, because you got men that say, well, hey, I'm in captivity, but I still have my concubine, And a concubine is a spoil of war, right? It's not food to just make wives for these strange nations, right? Unless they pollute you and spoil and overthrow you, you know?
Lest they make thee sin against me. For if thou serve their gods,
And for if thou serve their gods, you know?
it will surely be a snare unto thee.
Right, and these nations, right, which were right near, were snares, man. Snares, traps, man, right, to sexual seduction, man. I mean, just read the book of First Kings, right, the 11th chapter, for how Solomon loved all of these strange women, right, which turned his heart in his old age, right, from serving the Most High. Right, last precept, let's get that in First Ezra chapter 8, and start at verse number 69.
First Ezra chapter 8 and verse number 69. The nation of Israel, the princes, the priests, and Levites have not put away from them the strange people of the land.
Right, calm, man. So the Lord said the nation of Israel and the princes and the priests and the Levites, man, have not put away, right, the pollution of the land, right? Which are these strange nations, right on?
Nor the pollutions of the Gentiles, to wit, of the Canaanites.
Right, the Canaanites, man, right? And the Lord, man, he keeps reading about these Canaanites, man, right on? Hittites, Parasites, Jebusites,
and the Moabites,
Moabites,
Egyptians, and Edomites.
And the Edomites, man. Right, also the chief you brought to who wanted to love, you know, your person, man. But the Lord also said, man, right, that these Edomites, man, right, are also pollution, man, and snare, man. You know?
For both they and their sons have married with their daughters, and the holy seed,
you know,
is mixed with the strange people of the land. And from the beginning of this matter, the rulers and the great men have been partakers of this iniquity.
Hey, man, the Lord said, hey, that's a sin, right? To be dealing with these strange, wicked, and the depraved nations, right? All right, come on,
That's right, So next question.
The next question is from Paul Yasharala. Shalom, what events will happen after World War III starts, leading up to the Lord beaming up the elect?
Can you read that again?
Shalom, what events will happen after World War III starts, leading up to the Lord beaming up the elect?
Right, what events will happen after World War III? Go to Matthew 24 and 29. Right? So the elect are going to get beamed up at the height of World War III. Right? They're not going to get beamed up after World War III. All right? They're going to get beamed up at the pinnacle of World War III when the missiles begin to rain in America, right? Throughout those lands. Matthew 24 and 29.
Matthew chapter 24 and verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days.
Read that part again.
Immediately after the tribulation of those days.
The tribulation of those days is Jacob's trouble. Right? Go on.
Shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. So as Jacob's trouble reaches its climax, that's going to be the peak of World War III. That's when those nukes are going to start dropping. You may not see them now, right? It's only the fourth city. Right? They may not drop that Satan one yet, that Satan two. You're not going to see missiles hit America right now. If you're waiting for missiles to hit America right now, then you don't understand the prophecies, because we still have other events that have to happen. Just because Iran and Israel is bombing doesn't mean you want to wake up and a missile's coming to you, right? So the Lord is letting you know immediately after the tribulation of those days, Jacob's trouble, you might be a FEMA cap, you might be a pilgrim on the earth, you want to run. The Most High is going to start these nations to launch their ICBM missiles throughout the earth. Those are the stars that are falling from heaven. If you watch how these missiles are falling, they look like stars falling out of heaven, right? We don't get.
Verse 30.
And then shall appear the Son of the Son of Man in the heaven.
And then you have to pay attention to these, they call them transition words. Because you're transitioning from one phase and one prophecy to the next. Right? So after the wars that are kicking off and the missiles begin to rain, then that's when Yahushua's going to return. Go on.
And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory.
Right.
And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, and from one end of heaven to the other.
Right. So World War III is kicking off. America's going to get bombed at the end of the closing stages of World War III. Once those missiles begin to hit, pursuant to Isaiah the 13th chapter, Jeremiah 50, Jeremiah 51, Revelation chapter 17, 16 on down, then the elect are going to get beamed up in the chariots. They'll be in that chariot when the Lord closes out World War III at the Battle of Armageddon.
Let's go to 2nd Ezra chapter 13, and we can start at verse number 8. Right? 2nd Ezra chapter 13 and verse number 8. Right? So in the midst, like the brother read, you'll see the elect being beamed up while World War III is happening. But while World War III is happening, right, the armies that are fighting against each other are going to turn to allies to fight against the Lord. Right? They're going to have a common enemy, which is Yahushua. And the angels, the hundreds of millions of angels are going to be coming with them. Right? Bring it up.
2nd Ezra chapter 13 and verse 8. And after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet durst fight. And lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war, but only I saw that he sent out of his mouth, as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests.
So after the elect are beamed up, they'll be able to watch the destruction of the armies that came to vex the children of Israel on the sea of glass be burnt up and destroyed. Right? Jump to verse number 32.
2nd Ezra 13 and 32. And the time shall be.
So look, this is the interpretation of the vision that Edris had. Right? All Edris was said, 1 all the way to, I believe, verse 15 or 16, right, is the vision. And then they give you the interpretation of the vision. So nothing is left up to chance or the question. But you got.
And the time shall be when these things shall come to pass, and the signs shall happen which I showed thee before. And then shall my son be declared, whom thou sawest as a man ascending.
Right?
And when all the people hear his voice,
So like it started 31.
Verse 31. And one shall undertake to fight against another, one city against another, one place against another, one people against another, and one round against another.
Right, so this is all that's going on. You have the civil unrest going on during Jacob's trouble. You have World War III going on in the midst of Jacob's trouble. It's like a what's that movie, the Marvel movie, where they all vanish with the slap? That's
Ain't no.
it's Endgame. Infinity Wars, like Infinity Wars, man. You had everybody fighting at one time. They in Wakanda, where you got people coming from the sky, right? People trying to break the shield. It's going to be massive confusion going on. Right? Wars over here, battles over here, right? Jump to verse 33.
Verse 33. And when all the people hear his voice, every man shall in their own land leave the battle they have one against another.
Right? So they're going to stop the war that they got going on to try to subdue that land. Right? They're going to fight against them. They're going to send nukes up to the sky. They're going to do whatever they can. And the elect are going to be witnessing and watching all these things happen, clothed in the armor of the Most High, right? In his wings, right? In the clouds, right? Like it says in Revelation, the 11th chapter, I believe like the 8th verse. After those 350 years, they're going to wake up and they're going to be beamed up, right? They're gonna come back from being dead, wake up and be raised up to the heavens with the Lord and see the destruction that they'll have.
Right, come. Right, let's go to the book of Ezekiel, right to the 38, right, start at verse number 7. All right, God, right, because as the brothers went into, right, there's going to be a lot of civil unrest, right, a lot of conflict, right, the so-called rising, right, of the so-called Russians, right, as the so-called Babylon begins to follow this power, right, read that out.
Ezekiel chapter 38 and verse number 7. Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. After many days thou shalt be visited, and the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword.
Right, right. Right, so the Most High man said, after many days, right, thou shalt be visited. Right, meaning what? Right, though, at that time of destruction, right, that time of war, where we all.
And it's gathered out of many people.
Right. And it's gathered out of many people, right? Meaning the elected as getting beamed up and received right, from the whole bunch of the world, right? As this war and destruction is going on and continuing to end, right? We don't.
And it's gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste, but it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, right. All of them.
Right, God, right, and that's the war, right, the destruction, the bombs, the missiles, right, and all, it's breaking loose, man, right? You're going to have those that's caught up into the church, as the Lord said, it was the hand of Paul, right, and First Corinthians, the 15th chapter, right, and 51 on that, we don't.
Verse 9, thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land. Thou and all thy bands, and many people with you.
Right.
Thus saith the Lord God. It shall also come to pass that at the same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought.
Right, come. And so as these nations, these countries, right, look to come, right, as the clouds cover and to invade, right, they're also going to be thinking an evil thought, right, we don't.
And thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls, and having neither bars nor gates.
Right, come, right, all of the infrastructure, right, the so-called towers, right, your so-called iron domes, your so-called walls, your so-called cities, man. Hey, these things are going to be torn down and destroyed in these days, man. Right, in which right men are going to be looking and seeking to invade, right, to rob and spoil you,
to take a spoil, and to take a prey, to turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon the people that are gathered out of the nations which have gotten cattle and goods, that dwell in the midst of the land.
Right. That's why, right, God. Personally, even as the Lord said the prophecies that happened in 2 Ezra, the 15th chapter, right, 15 on down, right, then, right, going into invading one another's cities, right, never regarding the prince thereof, right, all the bombs, the Carmanians and dragons, of Arabia that joined forces in battle and the Arabian war, right, all these things are going to be occurring at the height of peak throughout World War III as we're being beaten up and received in each last station. God, guys.
God, I'll praise the Most High. Let's move on to the next question.
The next question is from Elijah Jones. It says, my study Bible indicates that Jonah was sent to the Assyrians, heathen nation as it says. And at that time, the northern kingdom was not yet sent away to captivity. What is your thoughts on this?
Well, you have, when people, I'll say this, when you have the deportation of the Northern Kingdom, it didn't just happen in one single event. Now, pull up, you can type in when did Jonah go to Nineveh? It should say around 740 or so BC, roughly around that time. That's when Jonah went to Nineveh. So you have multiple deportations that happened to the Northern Kingdom. The final one was by Salmanassar V. You had another one by Pul with Tiglath-Pileser III that happened roughly around the same time as Jonah. Bring it up, King.
Through the overview, it says, Jonah was sent to Nineveh to prophesy against its wickedness during the reign of Jeroboam the second of Israel, 782 to 753 BC.
Roughly around, let's take the low way around 753 BC, roughly around that time. This is a rough estimate. Now go to 2 Kings. All right, so the 2 Kings, the 15th chapter, and I believe you can start at 19.
2 Kings, chapter 15, and verse number 19. And Paul,
Read 18.
verse 18.
So this links up with the brother's water too.
And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He departed not all his days from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin.
And right, this was the wicked king of Israel. Read on.
And Pul, the king of Assyria, came against the land. And Menahem gave Pul 1,000 talents of silver, that his hand might be with him to confirm the kingdom in his hand.
Right.
And Menahem exacted the money of Israel, even of all the mighty men of wealth, of each man 50 shekels of silver.
So Pul is another name for Tiglath-Pileser III. And he already came up against the Northern Kingdom before the time of Salmanassar V. Now, I want you to jump down to verse number 29.
Jumping down to verse 29. In the days of Peter, king of Israel, came Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and took Jonah and Abel Beth-Maachah and Jonah and Kadesh and Hazor and Gilead and Galilee and all of Naphtali, and carried them captive to Assyria.
So this happened roughly around that same time. They said around 753 BC. When you look up Tiglath-Pileser deportation, it should give you roughly around the same time of Jonah going out there. That's what Tobit was out. He was in the tribe at that time. He got taken captive, right? And it happened around that time of that deportation. So bring it up.
Year.
Yeah, the year that Tiglath-Pileser Pileser went into the kingdom of Israel.
It says, Tiglath-Pileser III deported people from Israel in two main phases. The first was in 734 to 732 BC, when he conquered Galilee and other parts of the northern kingdom, deporting many Israelites to Assyria. The second occurred after 722 BCE, following the fall of Samaria to Assyria with further deportation.
So roughly around the time of that first deportation was around the time that Jonah went to Assyria. And you had Israelites that was living in that region amongst them. Right, so you had men that were sent to the land of the Medes and the book of Tobit. You had men that were sent to Nineveh, which was the capital of the Assyrian Empire. It was roughly around that same time. So sometimes the dates, they vary depending on who you are. That's why you have upper chronology and lower chronologies. When people study the Egyptian captivity, some people say that we were under the captivity of Ramesses. Right? Because they deal with the low-end chronology around 1200 or so BC. Then you have the high-end chronology, they'll say it was the time of Thutmose III, around 1456 BC. So it all depends on how you want to start the tracking of history. Right? But it's roughly around the same time. Good. All right, let's move on to the next question. It's ridiculous.
Next question from HBKN. Shalom King, was Joab a bad general? And why did David ask Solomon to deal with him and not do it himself?
Was Joab a bad general? Yes. Right? Who would you say yes? It's either you're a good general or you're a bad general. Right? His wickedness outweighed the good that he did. So you can call him a bad general. There were good things he did. You know, he was a cerebral man. He was a man of war. He slew many people. He was a chief general in the army, but he was a murderer. Huh? I mean, I don't know any good murderers. He murdered Abner. He murdered Absalom. You know, he was slaying men. He conspired against David. So there was a lot of things he did that was good, but there were things that he did that was bad. Huh? All right, let's go to the book of 1 Kings 2 and 5.
First Kings.
Telling his brothers, man, David always said, you sons of Zeruiah, you're too hard for it, huh? They were hotheads, they were uncontrollable, huh? They had a temper. You know, these were David's nephews, huh? Bring that up. Family affair.
First Kings chapter 2 and verse number 5. Moreover, thou knowest also what Joab, the son of Zeruiah, did to me, and what he did to the two captains of the host of Israel, unto Abner, the son of Ner, and unto Amasa, the son of Jephthah, whom he slew, and shed the blood of war and peace, and put the blood of war upon his girdle that was about his loins, and his shoes that were on his feet.
Did he literally put blood in his girdle and in his shoes? No. What does that mean? That's hip talk.
Yeah, the body would be killed.
You say what? Drenched in blood, pretty much. It was a bloody man. Right? He was a murderer. As if he carried that murder and bloodshed in his garment the same way you carry the truth and his knowledge and wisdom and understanding with your garment. To cover yourself. He was full of blood and murder, huh? Right? So read it one more time.
Moreover, thou knowest also what Joab, the son of Zeruiah, did to me.
Right, he conspired against David. He sided with Abiathar. He sided with Adonijah. Right, when they blew the trumpet to set Adonijah up as king. Go on.
And what he did to the two captains of the host of Israel, unto Abner, the son of Ner, and unto Amasa, the son of Jephthah.
He was stabbing men of the fifth rib, right? Throwing darts at people, hiding, extorting people. You kill Absalom, I'll pay you, I'll give you money. You know? Dirty, they were dirty and shiesty, man. You ain't got nothing, man. Right? One of them dudes, you got.
Yeah, we know a good way to look at Joab is like Scar from Lion King. Right. Yeah. Where he do whatever he can to be on top. Yeah. Undermine, connive, seditions. He would convince himself just to do his own pleasure. Right. That's right. Go on, King.
Whom he slew and shed the blood of war and peace, and put the blood of war upon his girdle that was about his loins, and in his shoes that were on his feet.
Right, you can murder, but that's like you can kill, but you can't murder. You can go to war, but it can't be in a time of peace. I can't go out and kill a brother or somebody say it was wartime. No, it wasn't wartime, huh? Right? If you go out and kill us, it was an act of war, but it wasn't commissioned by the Most High. It's counted as murder. Read on.
Do therefore according to thy wisdom, and let not his forehead go down to the grave in peace.
Right, so he deferred the judgment to his son. Remember, David was old, right? He could barely move, couldn't get heat. You know, it was more wise for him to have his son execute that judgment. He said, do according to your wisdom, huh? Right? You have more wisdom than me. Right? The Most High is going to deal with you, so you're going to be able to make a judgment. And remember, David, it could have been an emotional judgment, huh? You know, David probably saw, they had a relationship, and it might not have been, the best judgment, so he deferred to a neutral party to execute that judgment that would be more fitting. Unless you have that, what's what over not the conflict of interest, if you will, huh? Right, what you got?
All right, come on, right. Let's go to the book of 2 Samuel, chapter 3. Right, in verse number 37. Right, this is touch on that time.
2 Samuel, chapter 3, and verse number 37. For all the people and all Israel understood that day that it was not of the king to slay Abner, the son of Ner.
Right, come on. Right, so this one was a man that was presumptuous, right, that moved on his own accord, right, his own will and mind, right, as the brother said, right, it's like the so-called Shaitan, right, you know?
And the king said unto his servants, know ye not that there is a prince and a great man fallen this day in Israel? And I am this day weak through anointed king,
Right.
and these men, the sons of Zerubbabel, be too hard for me. The Lord shall reward the doer of evil according to his wicked.
Right, calm, man. Right, and Joab, man, he received the judgment, right? But the Lord called him, right? He said, the Lord shall reward the doer of evil according to his wickedness. Right? So this was a wicked man, right? That moved in his own lust, his own preeminence, as they say. Right?
Yeah, quick point. You can be a good general, you can be a bad person.
Right.
Right? You can be like, that's anything in life, huh? Right? That's anything in life. Right? You may provide for your children and do things as a father, but you still have wickedness inside of you, huh? Right? So we move on, King. Try to get to these questions.
The next one also is from HBKN. It says, Shalom, King. Could the deportations and rounding up of northern kingdom be a sign of Jacob's trouble? Or does it start with the persecution of the saints?
Both, right? Be a sign of Jacob's trouble, how they went around us up, and it starts with the persecution of the saints. We touched on that. Let's move on, King.
The next question is from Kwame Yasharab. Do we still have to keep Sabbaths, new moons, etc. during Jacob's trouble?
As second Esdras, chapter 16 to 74, tell you the days of trouble at hand. He's a God to those that keep his commandments. Right? So you're not gonna be saved if you think that you just don't have to keep the commandments. Just because all hell breaking loose now. We can't accept it.
Right. The next one is from, so I can put a pronunciation, Matambulo Sampasa. It says, Shalom. What y'all think the mark of the beast is if y'all don't think it's microchip?
Right? It's accepting the philosophies and the doctrines of the so-called white man. Right? In all forms and fashions.
Right, Colin, quick precept on that as well. Just be very brief. Right, let's go to the book of Ezekiel, right, chapter 9 and verse 4.
Ezekiel chapter 9 and verse number 4. And the Lord said unto him, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof.
Right, man. Right, so to everything is a just balance, man. Right, you got men that have the mark on the forehead, on the left hand side, right, to do wickedness, right, and to perform the works, right, of Esau and take on his philosophies, his so-called understanding, right, and make that your power and strength and inside your right hand and forehead. And then you have those that do that on the right hand side of righteous, right, that you make that the Most High God your power, your strength, and you meditate him upon him in your mind and forehead, and you perform in your right hand the works, right, of the Most High, right, by not conforming, right, to the image of this beast and performing and keeping the law, statutes, and commandments as well, right, as the Lord said, right, I know we're trying to move on, right, as the Lord said in the book of Psalms, right, if you the hand of David, right, to let Satan stand at that man's right hand, right, meaning that you can have, right, Satan or Esau's philosophy or the beast, right, your right hand, your power, your strength, and you're doing, right, and you're doing his workers wickedness, or you got the Most High at your right hand, or the frontless of your eyes, forehead, and making the Lord your strength and power. Right, okay.
That's right. Can you break down 2 Corinthians chapter 5:1 and Matthew chapter 22 and 30? You said Corinthians 5:1 real quick.
2 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 1. For we know that if our earthly house of this tabernacle were dissolved, we have a building of God, and house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens.
Right, so your earthly house is your physical body. If your physical body breaks down and decomposes, your spirit has another home, which is a spiritual body. You have a heavenly body, you have a spiritual body. You have a terrestrial body, you have a celestial body. Now, go to the book of Matthew 22 and 30.
Matthew chapter 22 and verse 30. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of God in heaven.
Meaning you won't die anymore, right? You can't die in a spiritual body, right? You don't have to worry about gastrointestinal diseases or heart attacks and lymphoma and asbestos falling on you, mesothelioma, and all these commercials, huh? You don't have to worry about these things. And the kingdom you'll have a spiritual body. That's what 2 Corinthians 5 is going into. You have an earthly house made of the elements of the earth. You have phosphorus in your body, calcium, iron. These things are found in the earth. You actually have gold in your body, believe it or not. There are traces of gold in the human body, man. Silver in your body. These elements are found in the earth. That's how you know man is made out of the earth. You have a spiritual body, which have the spirit, true image of Yahweh or Yahweh Shai instilled in it for you to keep the laws and the commandments perfectly in a state of immortality.
Quick explanation of that as well. 1 Corinthians 15, you start at verse number 53.
1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse number 53. For this corruption must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality.
Right, so flesh and blood can't inherit the kingdom of heaven, right? Can't get into the chariots being in the mortal flesh, right?
So when this corruptible shall have put on incorruption, and this mortal shall have put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory.
So once these things have been made perfect in the sight of the Most High, there will be no more death. Because what brings forth death? Sin. And that's when you get rid of that fleshy, that stony heart, and get a heart of flesh to be able to absorb and understand and move in one accord with the Most High, right? And be joint heirs with Yahweh, right? How you joint heir with somebody? You're in one with them, right? You're entwined, right? He's a man without spot and blemish. We're going to be without spot and blemish, right? That's pretty much to sum it up, both precepts.
Sorry, what's that? You want to read that one?
The next question I see from Terry Jacobs. Shalom. Is the famine of the word happening during Jacob's trouble?
God, that's what we have. Why? Because the persecution is going to be on the prophets in the middle of the Most High. And if they're not out there, then how you going to get the word of the Lord? Right? Class, Amos 8:11. Right? Amos 8. So get the word while you can, man. Why you got brothers watching, you still don't have a Bible, man. You still don't have it in pocket. You still don't read. You're just waiting for somebody to read to you, man. Only time you hear the word is at camp. One brother told me he really reads, but he has to go to the library. He has to take 2 trains and a bus. He can't read at home. He can't read in the car. He can't read on his own. He has to have other men read to him, man. He might as well have a brother warm you up a bottle, man. Run it under some hot water, man, with a breast book bag, man. And the brother said, feed you, man. And you gotta get this thing on your own, man. You gotta read on your own, man. Brother, keep putting the nipples in your mouth, you fucking up against it, man. Biting it, you know, clawing. Spiritually speaking about the word of the Most High. Right. It's Jake, man, Jake. I heard no brother said, bring that out, case. You gotta go spiritual, right?
Amos chapter 8 and verse number 11. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord God, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of the Lord.
Right, so that's going to be the Lord taking the ministry, all the lives, all the YouTube, all of the channels, going on the highways and byways, gathering and set multitudes, all that is going to be shut down. Once Moses shut that down, we on our way out of this. Right? And with that, prove yourself.
Prove yourself.
Prove yourself.
Prove yourself.
Prove yourself.